Hey guys, R4GE VipeRzZ here, and welcome back to episode 4 of my Python 3 series. So in this episode, we're going to be going over input statements and a bit more over if statements. So basically what an input statement does is it allows a user to input either some text or a number into your program. So before we can create an input statement, we first need to create a variable to store the input in. So we're first going to ask the user to input their name. So we're going to create a variable called name, and then we're going to set it equal to the input statement. Now to create an input statement, you just need to type input and then open bracket and then close bracket. Now it is recommended that you put inside the bracket what you want the user to input, else it will just be a blank line and the user won't know that they're supposed to input something. So we're just going to type inside the brackets, please enter your name, like so. And before we can save this code and run it, we first need to tell Python whether this input statement is going to be storing a string or an integer. So if you don't know what a string and an integer are, a string is, say, some text like this, and an integer is a number. So if you want a user to input a number, then you're going to be telling Python that the input is an integer, and if you want to put in any sort of text, then you're going to be telling Python that the input is a string. So as we're asking for a name, we're going to be telling Python that this input is a string. So to tell Python that this input is a string, we're just going to put str at the beginning, and then open bracket, and then a close bracket on the end. And just to show you that it is storing the actual input in the name variable, we will just print out the name variable below. So now if we save the code and we run it, it's now asking us to please enter our name. So if we enter a name such as Stephen, and then we press enter, as you can see it now prints Stephen. Now that's because when it gets to this line here it says, okay, we have a variable called name, and we're setting it equal to a string, and the string is an input, and the input is from the user. So once the user inputs their name, it is then stored in the name variable. Now what do we do if we want to, say, make the program just say hello and then whatever the user's name is? Well, to do that we can just edit the print statement slightly. So if we want it to say hello at first, we can just put hello in speech marks, like so, with a space at the end, and then just put a comma, like so. And now if we save the program and we run it, and then if we input a name, as you can see it now prints hello Steve. Now the comma just tells Python that this and this are two separate things. So this is some text, and then this is the variable that stores the name in. So now what about if you want to input a number into Python? Well, we will just get rid of this code, and it is very similar to before, but this time we're just going to be changing what we tell Python the input is. So this time we're going to create a variable called number, and we're going to set the number variable equal to the input again. And this time inside the brackets we're just going to type please enter a number you would like to double. And just like before, we now need to tell Python if the input is a string or an integer. So as we're asking for a number this time, the input is an integer. So we're just going to put int at the start, and then open bracket, and then a closed bracket at the end. And then if we come down 2 lines and we now print, and then we're going to print whatever the user inputs for the number, and then we're going to multiply, so with the little star, that is a multiply in Python. So if we multiply the number that the user inputs by 2, and then if we close it with a close bracket on the print statement, if we now save the code and we run it, as you can see it asks us to input a number. So if we input a number such as, say, 2, and then we press enter, as you can see it now prints out 4. So now what do we do if we want to make the input statement work with, say, an if? Well, this time we will ask the user a question, so we will just create a variable called answer to store the user's answer, and we will set it equal to an input again, and this time we will ask the user, do you want to be friends? So as before, we need to now tell Python if the input is a string or an integer. So we're asking the person to either put yes or no. So we're going to put str to tell Python that it's a string, and then open bracket, and then close bracket on the end. Now we can use an if statement to change what is printed out depending on the user's input. So if we come down 2 lines and we create an if statement, so if, and then if the answer variable is equal to the string yes, then we're going to make it print okay, we can be friends. And then we can add an else onto the end of the if, so else, and this is what will run if the user doesn't input yes. So we can print okay then. So now if we save the code and we run it, as you can see, it asks us, do we want to be friends? If we put yes, then it will go, okay, we can be friends. And if we run the code again, if we now put something like no, then it will say, oh, okay then. And it doesn't have to just be no, it can be literally anything that isn't exactly yes. So if we put, say, maybe, didn't even spell it right, but as you can see, it says, oh, okay then. Now it's even case sensitive on the if. So if we put yes with a lowercase y, then it will still say, oh, okay then. Because in the if, it asks, is the answer directly equal to the text yes? Well, if we don't put a capital Y, then no, it is not the same. So then it runs this code here. So guys, that's going to be the end of the episode. If you liked it, don't forget to hit the like button. If you disliked it, hit the dislike button. Subscribe for more content like this, and I'll see you another time. Bye.